All right, I made a video explaining why some Arabs don't believe the Holocaust. The 6 million Jews were targeted, ethnically cleansed, 6 million gassed to death or killed during the war, gas chambers, intensive program, the Holocaust, worked out many parts of the story. Why they would think, no, they can't be. And I'll just reiterate what it is here, that a people who just went through one of the worst genocides in human history, and were ethnically cleansed by people who claimed to be the master race, doing it for the fatherland, and executing the undesirables and those not like them. Communists, Jews, Gypsies, Poles, various sects of Christianity, Slavs, anybody who's racially unfit, mentally handicapped, any undesirable. Then immediately after they suffer this horrible event, and they say never again, they go to Palestine, they try to reclaim the fatherland, they claim to be the chosen people, and they ethnically cleanse the indigenous population. Or when Israel speaks about terrorism, and then you're like, wait, the Irgun, the bombing of the King David Hotel. Elie Wiesel, who wrote Night, also wrote a book called Dawn. I have it here somewhere, and it's about him executing a British officer. Not fighting in combat, they kidnapped a British officer and executes him. And Elie Wiesel, I believe he did go back and fight in Palestine after, or was a part of that group, the post World War II Jews that were in Palestine. He lived in France for a while, I know that. And this book's, wow, they impact me a lot. Night, especially reading that for the first time when I was in junior high. But what sickens me about Elie Wiesel, about the ADL, also known as the B'nai B'rith, is that they claim uniqueness. The Holocaust is the worst event to ever happen to anybody, and that no genocide or ethnic cleansing can be as bad as the Jewish Holocaust. Not only, the reason why I say the Jewish Holocaust is because they believe that they don't think the word Holocaust can apply to anybody else. It doesn't matter whether they say, oh yeah, you know what, they were stripped of their property, thrown into a ghetto, and died in a gas chamber, and were cremated. A gypsy who experienced the exact same thing as a Jew, or a Christian who experienced the exact same thing as a Jew, their suffering wasn't as great as the Jewish suffering. And the Holocaust didn't happen to Jews, Gypsies, Poles, various Christian sects, communists, any political dissenter, anarchists, those considered mentally unsound, the handicapped. Didn't happen to them. It only happened to the Jews. So if 1,000 people go into a gas chamber and one of them's Jewish, it's only that Jew that was executed during the Holocaust. Even though we know that the Gypsies were targeted, at a certain point in the war, the Catholics were targeted, at least the clergy was, especially in places like France, and that even the Slavs in Poland were targeted, along with the Gypsies, the Jehovah's Witnesses, various groups like that, homosexuals. And they did go after them because they were Gypsies, and because they were communists, and because they were homosexuals. People tend to say, well, they weren't executed because, yes, they were executed because of that. But if you say, I think the Holocaust applies to everybody in World War II, even those who died in Dresden in the firebombing of Dresden, or those Italian Americans who were deprived of their rights and put in concentration camps in the United States, or those Germans who were deprived of their rights and put in concentration camps in the United States, or those Japanese who were deprived of their rights and put in concentration camps in America. And people did die in circumstances, while not being as bad as Mauthausen or Birkenau or Treblinka or Majdanek or Auschwitz, it's still horrible. It's still an atrocity whenever you have civilian containment camps. Let's use that word. It's terrible. But if you say, yeah, I think the Holocaust, even if you say, I think the Holocaust was anybody who was murdered in the death camps of Majdanek, Treblinka, Auschwitz, Sobibor, Dachau, Mauthausen, Braunschweig, you could get beaten up or executed. Because anybody who they think is part of revisionism or Holocaust denial will be attacked. And people say, oh, that's, if anybody just said, oh, that wouldn't happen, there's a list of people who that did happen to. Or when the JDL tried blowing up various mosques and killing a congressman because these were Arabs. They figured, the Muslims attacked not Israelis, not Jews, but they attacked the World Trade Center. And yeah, some Jews were killed. The vast majority of people were Christian, as you would think they were in a country that's majority Christian. But to get back at that, they were going to execute innocent Arabs during worship and an innocent congressman. These were the same people that beat up the Jewish guy, David Cole, 3 times, the last time being very serious. They tried to kill him. They actually put a $25,000 reward on his head to kill him for his assassination. And he had to stop speaking his mind because they say you do not have the right to even look at Holocaust history, even the right to say, I think the Holocaust applied to anybody who was exterminated because they were a minority, or anybody who's exterminated at all under the regime of the Nazis, or at least any civilian. No, or even if you say, well, the Holocaust happened to the Jews and the Gypsies, they won't have it. You are enemy on their list. And we know now there was no bars of soap. There were no lampshades made out of human skin. There were no electric chambers. There was not a town that the Germans built for the Jews and then dropped a bomb on them. But if you say any one of those things didn't happen, you're a Holocaust denier, and you're a Nazi and a neo-Nazi, and you need to be killed. It's sad that I can actually say that, and that's a real thing. Actually, in most parts of Europe, you could go to jail for saying any one of those things. Oh, yeah, they weren't in an electric shock chamber, or they didn't have an atomic bomb dropped on them. Or if in Canada you say even the Israelis recognize that Jews were never turned into bars of soap, you could get 5 to 10 years in prison. And you can't contest it either. You can't say, I'm right. You can't enter that. It's either throw yourself on the mercy of the court or plead insane. Another thing is Auschwitz. The Holocaust is an important event, so we should be only the most accurate recollection of it. Auschwitz, the Soviets said 4 million died there. In 1989, they revised that, and they said 1.1 million. The official Auschwitz museum said 1.1 million. Yet the number of 6 million Jews killed is kept. And people will actually argue, well, it still is 6 million. It doesn't matter if 3 million didn't die at Auschwitz. They died somewhere else. Wait a minute. You got the 6 million number by claiming that Auschwitz killed 4 million people, Treblinka near 1 million, and then the rest of German-occupied Europe. So when you take down the 3 million You can't just say, oh, but they were killed somewhere else, because that's all these other people who you're saying that 3 million we didn't know about before 1989. That there are 3 million people elsewhere in Europe that were Jews that were killed by the Nazis that weren't counted and that we couldn't have known of. But yet they're still there. And it's ridiculous. The problem is, though, is that with the Holocaust, is that the uniqueness doctrine. It's only the Jews. The worst thing that could happen. It's the worst thing that ever happened or ever could. This did not when Rwanda was going through its genocide. The ADL lashed out at people who said there's a genocide going on there, Hutu against Tutsi. There's ethnic cleansing. Zimbabwe, the genocide that happened there in 2013. No, can't be called a genocide. The ethnic cleansing in Iraq against the Yazidis and the Christians, which were their own people groups. It wasn't just a religion like we think of it in the West. They were their own contained people group since the fall of the Sasanian Empire. Couldn't be. In Syria, it couldn't be. In the 90s, in the Balkans, couldn't be genocide. Um, and you will get attacked by the people who think just like Myra Khanna. I urge people to watch Defamation because it just makes people harder. I mean, I'll make a second video on that. Peace to you.